people of God out there in YouTube. Reverend Jerome Roberts here with another segment of Sinful but Saved. Today we are in the Old Testament and the book of Ruth, starting in chapter 4. We're going to go from verse 13 to verse 15. So Boaz took Ruth, and she was his wife. And when he went in unto her, the Lord gave her conception, and she bare a son. And the woman said unto Naomi, Blessed be the Lord, which have not left thee this day without a kinsman, that his name may be famous in Israel. And he shall be unto thee a restorer of thy life, and a nourisher of thine old age. For thy daughter-in-law, which loveth thee, which is better to thee than 7 sons, hath borne him. Okay, a lot of you may be familiar with the story about Ruth and Naomi. A lot of times when people get married, they kind of use a verse from, these chapters where it says, if you go where I go, your God will be my God. Ruth was the daughter-in-law of Naomi. Naomi had a son, Abimelech, which married Ruth, and he died. And before that, they were together, and Ruth decided to stay with her mother-in-law. One of the things duly noted about those of you that are contemplating marriage, first let me say to you, you are not just marrying the person. You are marrying the family. You cannot take on a wife, or a wife cannot take on a husband and not realize that their family is now your family. And anything that they might need, with a few concessions, you should be, with a joyful heart, willing to do. And this is what Ruth did. She followed her mother-in-law and took care of her. And ultimately, her mother-in-law ended up without a redeemer to carry on her family's name. So what happened back then, they had a kinsman redeemer role. If the next of kin decided to marry somebody in the family that husband had passed on, then that firstborn would go to them. That's what these verses reads about, that the baby that Ruth actually had, that her and Boaz had, ended up going to Naomi. So now she could carry on her family's name. So that's not done in these days and times, but this is what happened back then. Now, let's go back to the story about Ruth and Boaz. Now, Boaz saw Ruth gleaning in the fields and ultimately was attracted to her. And I want to note a few things that I saw in reading all of this. Number one, Ruth was a hard worker. She was a very hard worker. Number two, she was dedicated to her mother-in-law. Number three, she was very sacrificial. Number four, she paid attention to her mother-in-law's wisdom. She did a few things that her mother-in-law told her to do, and again, she accepted their God and gave up her God because she was a Moabite, so they had a different, faith. And she gave up her God and accepted her husband's God, and now Naomi, since her husband had passed. And as a result of that, Boaz saw, as they say, favor in her and took her to be his wife. Now, a lot of you women might think that you have to do certain things to acquire a man. It's not really so. Real men see the soul of a woman. You can see a woman in a grocery store and she had to run out and she just threw on a hat and got on some skivvies and she's rushing and she's not thinking about her appearance because she got something going on that she had to rush out. But a real man could even see a woman in a situation like that and still know that she is worth more than what her outer appearance is. Aesthetics is nothing to somebody that really loves somebody. When you love somebody, you love somebody. First of all, that person that sees you have to first of all be a man of God. And I'm definitely using this terminology because as the Bible says, the man that findeth a wife findeth a good thing, not a woman finding a husband. Now, Ruth put herself in position to be noticed, and again, she ultimately, ended up with Boaz, and the Lord saw favor in her, and again, to her dedication and her faithfulness, the Lord showed her favor. And again, it's nothing that you really have to do anything extra to acquire anybody or to draw attention to yourself, because people, again, that's connected to the Lord, they will connect to the person that's connected to the Lord. So if you are in turn connected to the Lord, guess what? Somebody that's connected to the Lord will see you. This has been another short segment of Sinful but Saved. For those of you who haven't accepted Jesus Christ as your personal Savior, do so while you yet have a chance. See you next week.